How will Kellen Moore change the Saints in his first year? Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Athletic Football Show. First time we've watched these young Bulls. Speaking of, hey, shout out. I was at the Rabbit Hole last weekend watching Flatline Radio, absolute superstar band. Two different hombres rolled up and said, hey, big fan of the channel. One guy even bought me a Paradise Park. Even got me a good old-fashioned, 16-ounce Paradise Park can, so thank you very much to those two hombres. One of the guys was doing his fantasy football draft the next day. He had the 4th overall pick, so hopefully his draft went well. But, all right, let's go ahead and listen to this, see what they got to say, and we'll react along the way.
Hired Kellen Moore as their head coach, Doug Musmenauer as their offensive coordinator,
Yes.
Brand Staley as their defensive coordinator.
Yes.
Retained Chase Young, 3 years, $51 million, 33
Yes.
guaranteed. Signed Justin Reed, 3 years, $31 million, 22 guaranteed. Juwan Johnson, 3 years, $30 million. Brandon Cooks, 2 years, $13 million. Acquired Devon Godshaw in a trade from the Patriots. Also brought in Isaac Yadam as one of their outside corners. Lost Paulson Adebo, MBS, and Will Harrison free agency. Drafted Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle in the first round. Quarterback Tyler Shough, 40th overall in the second round. Defensive tackle Vernon Broughton in the third round. Safety Jonas Senka in the third round. Linebacker Danny Stutzman in the 4th round, cornerback Quincy Riley in the 4th round. It's a little bit disorienting. I'm not used to the Saints having that many picks, but they had a decent amount of them
Didn't even say them all. But, yeah, what an offseason.
last year. Derek, what are you excited to watch with the 2025 New Orleans Saints?
I said it at the top of the show. I am weirdly intrigued by this team. Not to the end that they will be good, but to the end that I kind of want to watch them for whatever reason. And a lot of that to me comes down to the offensive line. I think
Yes.
it's not just that I kind of like the players. I think Fuaga, kind of in the way that we've talked about J.C. Latham, moving back to his natural position at the right side, I think that matters for a lot. I think he was thrown into the fire a little bit last year. I love Kelvin Banks, and I think he's looked good in the preseason, their first-round pick this year. And Penning,
Banks has been insane. Let's not get it twisted. Banks has been as good as you can ask for a top 10 pick, as good as you can ask for a first-round tackle. Yeah, and like this guy said, Fuaga moving back to his natural position after an already good year. Banks looking as good as he's looked so far. There's a lot to like on the offensive line for the Saints, just for the players. Then you factor in that one's a second-year player, one's a rookie. What that means for your finances, what that means for the next couple of years with the salary cap. I mean, yeah, that is an enormous. Just having those two tackles, huge win.
I think you still need a little bit more to see, but I think even he's looked decent in the preseason next to Kelvin Banks at guard instead of what he was having to do out at tackle. And then you obviously have two more veteran players next to them in Eric McCoy and Cesar Ruiz. So there to me is a chance that this offensive line is kind of good. And to what end? Because
I mean, hey, very rarely do we start these videos with positivity, but this guy is right. Yeah, I think the offensive line could be good. Now, we've seen some injuries. We're a little bit in flux with the guard play. Ruiz has left a lot to be desired. Penning is hurt. We'll see who ends up playing left guard, whether it's Torcella Simpkins or Radens or whoever. But 3 of the 5 you got to feel really good about. And if the guard play can be average, just bang average, this offensive line can be and will be good.
The quarterback situation, which we'll get to, I don't know. But I do think that this can be a unit that potentially they are really excited to build around.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to watching that group. And I think this extends to other pieces on the offense for me, too. Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave, Dave, are exciting players. You combine those two guys with a young, potentially ascending offensive line, and Alvin Kamara, who I think showed you last year, still got some juice left in the tank.
Hell yeah.
The supporting cast from a talent perspective on this Saints offense, it's going to be watchable if things break right at the very.
I mean, damn, are these guys Saints fans? Are these guys filming in Kenner? This is as positive as I've heard a group on the Saints, but they sound realistic. Yes, that offensive line's awesome. Yes. Or that young offensive line's awesome. Yes. Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed are legitimate playmakers. Yes. Alvin Kamara is a legitimate running back. Yeah. Kellen Moore being the head coach with those pieces, that's something.
At least.
I think that's what's frustrating about the Saints is it's easy to bag on them because they don't have a quarterback, and it's easy to sit here and crack jokes about trying to draft a quarterback and is Archie's grandson going to come out in the draft and save the franchise and all that good stuff. And the bottom line is they got a pretty good team.
This is crazy. I mean, this is nuts. Like, these guys are. I might have to subscribe to The Athletic.
Don't have the most important position, or at the very least, we don't know what.
Man, I was just about to say that. You don't even know. Like, that's the problem, is that it's not that the Saints don't have the most important position. It's that we just don't know what they have. We have no clue what Spencer Rattler is going to be. We have no clue what Tyler Shough is going to be. And people just, instead of leaving a variable for maybe they're okay, they just kind of penciled them in as being really, really bad.
Those guys are. If you want to believe in the quarterbacks, that's fine. We don't know. But what we do know is, like,
we just don't know.
I like
TBD.
the receivers. I'm excited about the offensive line. I like Alvin Kamara. Like, if they had more at quarterback, especially with how long the offseason is, you don't think I could talk myself into the Saints winning the division with better quarterback play?
So that's a point we have made too, where let's say Derek Carr was the quarterback of this team. I'll help this guy out a little bit. Let's say Derek Carr was the quarterback of this team. What would the narrative around the Saints be? And the answer is they probably would be like a dark horse candidate to win the NFC South, because people would talk themselves into Derek Carr, Kellen Moore, finally a coach that can get the most out of Carr, and he's got Olave and Shough. He's got this. He's got. And my stance is that if Derek Carr is the 20th-ish best quarterback in the NFL on average, maybe even less, probably less, can you get Spencer Rattler or Tyler Shough to be somewhere around that? Even if it's not that. Like, let's just say Derek Carr is the 21st best quarterback in the NFL if he was playing. Can you get Spencer Rattler or Tyler Shough to like 25th? Can they be the 25th best quarterback? Just a little bit worse. As long as they're not a dumpster fire at the position, the difference isn't, because right now the narrative is the Saints are the worst team in the NFL. So the difference between the 21st quarterback on this team and the 25th best quarterback on this team is not dark horse division winner, worst team in the NFL. It might be a game or two, right? It might be like a 9-win team to a 7-win team, 8-win team to a 6-win team, 10-win to a 7, or 10 to 8, but it's not 9 to 2. It's not that is the math that's not mathing this entire offseason.
Absolutely could. But the quarterback's just not there as far as I know, and so it's hard. But don't
even count Derek Carr, Daniel Jones, Joe Flacco, anyone like that. Like, if they were the starting quarterback of the Saints, what would the narrative be?
I like everything that y'all said. Like, there's talent here. This is not Carolina last year. Like, this is not a hopeless JV squad.
These guys have been watching
this team wasn't that bad last year. Like, they were grotesque to watch by the end because of some of the injuries and stuff, but like, they had the same record as the Panthers. It's just that like things broke differently in terms, like, we remember the end of the Panthers season looking great, whereas for the Saints it was early before a bunch of guys got hurt. But like, this roster and team wasn't that bad.
I mean, these guys are unbelievable. These guys deserve their own show.
They were absolutely decimated by the end of last year. They had
100%. I'm echoing what these guys are saying because they're echoing what I've been saying. But think about how bad the Saints were last year, and they weren't as bad as they're being forecasted to be this year. That is another part of the math that's not mathing. They were decimated with injuries, coaching turnover, all that stuff last year, and now somehow they're going to be worse. Like, everything that people are saying about the Saints, they should have been saying about them last year because it fit. It's like, yeah, I mean, these guys are practice squad players. These guys are free agents. These guys shouldn't even be starting. This year, those guys aren't there anymore. And even last year, the numbers, the metrics, the analytics aren't as bad as like Carolina, Cleveland, Tennessee, teams like that. Right? But those teams get a pass. Those teams get, oh, well, they're better this year. Oh, well, they're developing. Oh, well, they're doing this. It's crazy that Jacksonville, a team that people are still bought into, a team that people still think are on the up and up, a team that still, like, they won 4 games last year. The Saints won 5. And Jacksonville's paying their quarterback $275 million. Jacksonville just traded for Travis Hunter, right? Like, but the narrative is completely different. You would think the Saints were the worst team in the NFL last year. You would think they were like the worst record, number 1 pick, whatever. But they were a win off of the 49ers. One more win than the Jaguars. Same record as the Panthers. You know what I mean? But like, if you like, these guys are saying they weren't. And this is like the thing that I've been preaching nonstop. The Saints weren't as bad last year as people think they will be this year. And that just doesn't make any sense.
No pass catchers. And so we'll see. You know, I think with Olave, obviously, it's just a different sort of injury concern because we're talking about concussions. And so that can happen at any time. And, you know, there's more going on there than his football future. And so that's just something to keep in mind when thinking about what this group could look like. But him and Shaheed together, I just think is one of the more dynamic receiver duos in the league, even if Rashid Shaheed is maybe a little bit more limited than other guys we get excited about. I will say about the offensive line, just to throw like a tiny bit of cold water on this is still a theory. We're talking about...
Yeah, it's all a theory. The whole thing is a theory. Like Kelvin Banks, Talise Fuaga, that's all a theory. You know, like, I mean, there's some of it. It's not like Eric McCoy is not. Eric McCoy's a proven player. We know we're going to get out of him.
Rookie left tackle. Yeah. We're talking about a second-year guy changing sides. We're talking about Trevor Penning, who has been undeniably bad at tackle. That's why they're moving him inside. This is not a cure-all. Like, just taking a bad tackle and making him a guard doesn't make him a functional player. And he's dealing with a turf toe that's going to keep him out for a while. So I think if things go well, there are versions of this offensive line that are good. I'm not treating that as any sort of certainty here as we're getting toward the season.
If I dig a little deeper, I know that, right? Like, I can look at the unit and I know that, but there's something about looking at those names on paper and being like, they'll hit the 80th percentile and they'll be okay. Like, I can't stop myself from doing it, and I don't know why I'm doing that with the New Orleans Saints, but I am.
I think the Saints are a perfect candidate for a team that in week 3, people are like, damn, this team's kind of all right. Because all of this theoretical stuff could have, like, now you can see it, right? Like, if they're running the football well, if Alvin Kamara's having 100-yard games, if the offensive line looks good, if you're starting to see week 1, best offensive lineman, PFF grade, Kelvin Banks. Week 2, best tackle that hasn't allowed a pressure, Talise Fuaga. Like, if you're starting to see that kind of stuff, Chris Olave, 8 catches for 92 yards. Like, if you're seeing that in week 1, 2, 3, very quickly, this team can flip the fastest narrative-wise because all of the hypothetical, all of the theoretical can all of a sudden become very real.
Do you think Eric McCoy is a criminally underappreciated player? And I think his loss specifically was there were so many reasons why it went off the cliff last year. But Eric McCoy going out early in the year and not coming back until it was not salvageable, I think that goes underappreciated in the league landscape.
I was in my fantasy football draft I was talking about this. It's crazy. Think about the runaway narrative last year if the Saints would have beat the Eagles in week 3, which they easily could have. Think all hell broke loose that game. Eric McCoy got hurt, disaster. And the Saints probably had a 99% win share until the Dallas Goedert catch. Like, the freak Dallas Goedert catch changed everything. The Saints had almost 100% chance to win that game. Even everything that happened, they still should have won that game. Now imagine if the Saints are 3-0 and they beat Carolina, dog walk Dallas, and then beat Philadelphia. At that point, they are the NFC favorites. It would have played out, it wouldn't have played out that way, and then it's wild that the other game that they had a 50-50 shot to win, comes down to a 2-point conversion, was against Washington. The two NFC championship game contenders, the Saints had a 99% chance to beat one and a 2-point conversion play to beat the other. And that's without any players. That's without, at the Commanders game specifically, that was Spencer Rattler coming in. Jake Haener started that game, So it's just wild how last year played out, and it's wild how everything's setting up for this year to play out.
Let's talk about the swing points potentially for the 2025 New Orleans Saints. What do you got for me, Derek? Where could
literally the entire team
this year pivot in your mind for this?
Offensive line, wide receiver, quarterback, defense, Chase Young, second. Everything.
For me, it's the secondary because they have a lot of new pieces in here. I mean, they brought in 2 new safeties with Justin Reed, which I think at the time we were like, to what end are they doing this? But like again, if I don't think this team is going to be an embarrassment, I get why they wanted to do that.
Yeah.
They bring in Julian Blackmon to I think help replace Tyrann Mathieu, retiring. Isaac Yadam is going to be their other corner. They're really asking a lot of Kool-Aid McKinstry, who
I don't know about that. We've talked about the Isaac Adams stuff with the Debo compensation pick and all that, but now if you look at it, I mean, if Alante is healthy, Yadam falls kind of quickly to that like cornerback 4, cornerback 5 kind of area. I don't think they're going to be asking, because I think Riley's been good. So we'll see how it all plays out. But I think at one point you were thinking, man, is Isaac Yadam going to be our like second corner?
they drafted in the second round last year to step up. Obviously, they had traded away Lattimore and stuff like that. So, and then even at the nickel, Alante Taylor is one banged up, but has been a player where he's either really good or really bad. And like it just depending on which way he swings for any given stretch, I think could go a long way. So if like I think in the Brandon Staley defense, which we're going to talk about a little bit more in depth later, the safety play really matters. And I do think having a guy like Justin Reed actually could go a long way there. So I can see the world where this goes right, but they do need at least like 3 out of 5 of these guys to really play closest to their best level.
Yeah, I agree. I think you got to get a lot out of Kool-Aid. You got to get a lot out of Justin Reed, for sure.
Stylistically, I think Justin Reed and Julian Blackmon actually do make sense together. I actually think that Justin Reed kind of makes up for a lot of the weaknesses Julian Blackmon had. And I think Julian Blackmon's tackling issues, some of that has been driven by some of the injuries that he has dealt with. But what Justin Reed is bringing to you as a tackler and just as a physical presence at safety, I think does make up for some of the concerns you might have about Julian Blackmon.
Yeah, I couldn't agree. It's like the perfect little, again, like it's Julian Blackmon. I think we forget that like 2 years ago, a lot of people were excited about him as like, oh man, is he one of those like up and coming? And then just injury stuff kind of got it taken away from him.
What is your like confidence level that this can turn into a workable secondary with all of those guys that you just talked about?
I mean, I feel pretty good about the defense as a whole. I mean, I feel great about Blackmon and Reed. I feel good about, I don't know if I feel great about the top end of the secondary, like about Kool-Aid as your 1, but I feel good about the handful of guys that we have at the defensive back position. I feel good about our defensive line on the outside. I feel good about rushing the passer. We'll see about stopping the run, but I feel good about Chase Young, Brian Brzee, Carl Granderson.
I mean, workable, like, I would say like 50, 60%. Like, Alante Taylor, I think at times can be really good. And like, I think McKinstry is, I think in an ideal world, like a higher end number 2 corner for you. But like, given where they're at with this unit,
he's very similar to what I've been saying about the offensive line, where they just got to kind of be average. Like they can't be a disaster. Like they can't be, Kool-Aid can't be an F. If he is a high end 3 or a high-end lower tier 2, okay, I'll take that. He doesn't have to be Patrick Surtain.
I think that can be fine. And then I think Justin Reed is, unless he hits the age cliff this year, still one of the top 8 safeties in the NFL probably.
Yeah,
like
cool
I think there's enough here that I can piece it together.
Dave, what is your swing point for the 2025 Saints?
Maybe it's the New Orleanian in me, but I can't let go of my interest in the holdovers from the Sean Payton era, and there aren't as many, but there are surprising numbers still kicking around. And if the ones that were on the roster weren't good enough, I love that a Brandon Cooks reunion is going to be part of this season. I like that's.
Well, we'll see how much Brandon Cooks plays, considering they just traded a 4th-round pick for Devon Vele.
Yeah, we got Devon Vele, Mason Tipton's coming on. So yeah, Brandon Cooks is one of those guys where it's like he was looking like the 3, but now it's like, maybe he won't play that much.
By the way, that's insane.
Can we talk about that for a minute?
I would like to, because Devon Vele, great. He was like, when you find the undrafted 26-year-old or whatever he was as the Broncos in Sean Payton's offense, you're like, cool, nice little find. You don't go trade a 4th-round pick for that guy. Like, that's insane.
Especially when you're at this stage, when you're the Saints.
Yes.
Like, I think any team.
I mean, we've covered this. I think there was a competition for Vele. I think the Saints had to overpay, but I think the Saints could overpay because of potentially the compensation. We'll see how it all plays out, but I think it was a unique situation where they were willing to overpay to get the guy they needed, and they absolutely desperately needed this type of player.
That is potentially going to be in the quarterback draft market the following year. You cannot be trading away picks. You're probably going to need to give, unless you end up with the number 1 pick, and we'll talk about this, or you're in position to draft. Ammo is very important when you could potentially be in the quarterback market. So if you feel, unless you feel very good about Tyler Shough being your 2026 quarterback, and I just don't know how you can say that about a quarterback drafted 40th overall, given the hit rate of those guys at the position, you just can't be doing this.
It's such a good trade if you have ambition for the coming season, right? Like, I love it if you think you're going somewhere. And if Mickey Loomis believes in his heart of hearts that this team has ambition, even like whatever, maybe they defy all the odds and make the playoffs. Like, for what? To what? To what end? Like Derek said about the Dolphins the other night. Like, and he's going to be 28 next year when you're probably retooling the quarterback's position. It's weird across the board. It doesn't make sense unless you just don't have any self-awareness about where you are in your roster build.
I mean that's what the New Orleans Saints have been
the
last 5 years.
I don't know why I say that with a tone of surprise in my voice.
I mean, there is like a, there is a world where the Saints feel like, look, we're going to be there. We're going to be all right in this like 3-year window. And if you feel like you get a player who can help you in that 3-year window. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree. If you're the worst team in the NFL, you're the first overall pick. Like trading a 4th for Devon Bailey probably isn't the move.
No, people are going to be yelling at their computers, being like, "It's a 4th round pick. Who gives it?" Yeah, that's probably true. But that doesn't mean
he was undrafted the year before. Like, what are we talking about?
That doesn't mean this is.
He was a 7th, right? I mean, not that there's much difference, but
worth doing. Like, you still want more 4th round picks. They're going to have a 4th round comp pick next year. It was too much. The idea that they were going to have 2 4th round picks after having 2 4th round picks this year, unacceptable to them.
I do think Vele was a 7th rounder.
He was drafted.
Yeah, sorry.
He was drafted.
Okay,
that's pretty good ROI for the Broncos. By
there we
the way.
go.
He's picked 2.
Well, I think it was one of those things where, like, and this is what we talked about during that trade, was that the Broncos kind of had to do it. The Broncos were sitting there like, we're between him and Pat Bryant, and then we drafted him in the 7th, and the Saints come in and say, we'll give you a 4th. It's like, damn, well, we don't have a choice.
35, so it's not as if you're far off, Derek. I mean, I get it. In a vacuum, a 4th round pick isn't that big of a deal, but when you are a team it's not
what the pick represents, David.
No, well, not only that, but like they are important though. You need bites at the apple. You need the ability to pick players, and maybe you will find somebody important with that 4th round pick. I mean,
I think the pick is basically like, it's kind of a desperation move to get receiver help right now is what it is, because agreed. Like, that 4th round pick is something. Having those picks is something when you're a team trying to get younger and cheaper and all that stuff. So, but if you're willing to pay some upfront payments to get a position and a player that you desperately need, and you potentially could have a comp pick coming, and you just made 9 picks. Like, if all that, it's just kind of like the perfect storm to where I can see both sides of it. But unequivocally, like, if he's not good, or if he doesn't play, or if the Saints are awful, then you obviously want the pick.
Saints know better than anybody. That 2017 draft class was insane. They found difference makers at every level of the thing.
The 2025 draft class could be insane.
Like, 1 pick isn't that big of a deal, but it just represents the ability to add talent to your roster, and to think that that's not important where you are right now is strange. To get back to my point, like, I don't have high expectations for Brandon Cooks this season. I think we can mercifully let go of the idea that Cam Jordan is like a true difference maker at this stage in his career.
Yeah, we're 2 years off from him being like an actual impactful starter.
But there still are some older players. Obviously, Demario Davis. I already mentioned Eric McCoy, who was drafted toward the end of Sean Payton's time, but he was there for the Sean Payton years. Kamara, obviously. There are some older guys that just could be linchpins here, where it's like, how much do you have in the tank? How high of a level are you going to play? And you're playing an important enough position where if you can dig deep and find good production, it could mean a lot.
What's keeping us up at night about the Saints, I think, is the same for all 3 of us. But Derek, I'm going to let you dig into this. What is keeping you up at night about the 2025 New Orleans Saints?
Yeah, I mean, it's the quarterbacks. Like,
Yeah.
there's really no dancing around it.
Yeah, that's the big question, right? Like, that's the biggest question because it's the most important position. But at the same time, the answer just can't be the worst. Like, it just can't be bottom of the barrel, 32nd. If they are just average to below average, I think everything will be okay.
And I think that is actually especially true. I know, again, it's the preseason, but
I mean, they kind of just had to be like Aiden O'Connell was when he was starting for the Raiders. Like, Aiden O'Connell was bad. He was really no ceiling. Like, everyone kind of knew what it was, but it wasn't so bad. It wasn't Curtis Painter levels of bad.
I think that is especially true after watching them in the preseason. Like, I think Spencer Rattler, when the ball comes out, is the better player, but his issue is that the ball does not come out often enough. He is very, like, he has a lot of the same issues that, like, Caleb Williams has, but he's not nearly as talented of a mover or creator as Caleb Williams.
I don't think he's still. I think he's closer to Baker when Baker was early in his career, where Caleb's a completely different situation. Rattler doesn't try and do the stuff that Caleb does, but I think Rattler does sometimes lean on that like gunslinger mentality, and he's got a good enough arm to try some of these throws like Baker, but it's not Josh Allen level to where you get away with it. You know, it's just good enough to where he thinks I can do this, but then it's not good enough to where it works out. And Baker went through a lot of that too. I think Baker and Rattler are very similar players athletically, just kind of how they play the game, how they move around, what you get from them. Obviously, Baker is way better, but when Baker was getting released from Carolina and getting released from Los Angeles, yeah, he wasn't the Baker that everyone sees now. So I think there's some of that in his game. I don't see any Caleb Williams though.
So you just end up with a guy who takes 1 million sacks, and I think even in the preseason, again, we're seeing some of that. And then Tyler Shough, for again, I know it's the preseason, and I know that we've seen guys have bad preseasons and then look perfectly fine by the regular season. He has just not impressed me. He just does not yet look like a guy who the speed of the game makes sense to him.
I was about to say that. I think the one thing that you can say about Tyler Shough so far is that he's just a hair behind. Like, I think his processing, you can almost tell he's processing, and you can see it. Like, you can see that's why he's a second off or a step off, or he's just barely missing. And I think it's because he's still going through his progressions, going through whatever he's doing, and he just hasn't caught up to the speed of the game, which is, I mean, he's a rookie. It is what it is. That happens, right? That's why you sit rookies, let them develop, let them get the speed of the game.
Not look like a guy who comfort in the pocket is very natural to him right now. And so, again, maybe by November, some of that stuff is sorted out and he feels like he knows how the bullets are flying. But again, for a guy they spent, the 40th pick on, and a guy who's older, who's like a 25, 26-year-old prospect, you kind of want him to be out of the gate pretty good. And I'm just a little bit dubious of that.
Yeah, I mean, 40th overall picks at quarterback, and the hit rate in the history of this is not good, period, let alone a quarterback with Tyler Shough's, checkered background. Like, this could absolutely work. And there are some elements about Tyler Shough as a prospect that were worth getting excited about, but there are plenty of red flags about how this is going to go with a Tyler Shough, Spencer Rattler quarterback room. My assumption is that Rattler will start the season, and then we will see Shough eventually because they need some answers on this.
Yeah,
but
I agree with that.
Even in a decent situation, even if we think that the supporting cast personnel wise is solid, if the offensive line comes together, there is a chance that the Saints just get very, very bad quarterback play for a majority of this year. And that's really hard to overcome, even with a spectacular supporting cast, let alone one that's probably going to be middle of the road, even in a good situation.
I don't know if I can see very bad. I could see below average. I think if they're very bad, I think Kellen can insulate with just making them game managers and making them just, run the football, protect them, keep it vanilla, whatever. But I don't think it's going to be in that like very, very bad world.
I already mentioned it, so I won't dwell on it long, but I lose a lot of sleep thinking about the idea that Tyler Shough is the Saints' multi-year backup after this year because they will draft a quarterback. And I mean, you need a backup, that's fine. But if you draft a quarterback in the first round and all you got out of Tyler Shough was 6 starts in which you won 1 game in his rookie year, and the rest of it is just a super expensive insurance policy. It's not the end of the world, but I don't think it's good process. Not
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it all plays out. It is you do have to, I mean, again, like this all, we had to see it first. But yeah, if he doesn't get on the field or doesn't play past the 4 games that we see him this year, if we do see him, then you do have to wonder, like, well, what's the plan? Like, well, where did the process fail? Where did it go wrong? And very similar to like the Kyle Trask situation in Tampa. Like, sometimes you'll never find out those answers. Like, you never find out about why did y'all spend a 2nd-round pick on Kyle Trask when y'all had Tom Brady? Like, what was the plan here? Where did y'all miss? Then y'all brought in Baker. What exactly happened? I think in Tampa's situation, they're just like, well, we got Baker now. It is what it is. Whoopsie poopsie. And it doesn't really get beyond that. I could see that being the same thing with Tyler Shough if it does go that route where they were just kind of throwing a dart, took a shot, didn't work out. But the saving grace for the Saints would be if it doesn't work out because Spencer Rattler works out, or if it doesn't work out because they draft whoever and they work out. And if that happens, the need to know what happened with Tyler Shough or need to know where the process broke down, it becomes much lesser.
when you had a pretty good idea of how this season was going to go before you even drafted him.
I'm going to throw 2 teams out, both in the AFC South, that approach this in very different ways. The Texans just rolled with Davis Mills, right?
Yeah.
They knew they weren't doing anything, so they just rolled with Davis Mills. They were bad. They got a top 5 pick. They drafted CJ Stroud the next year. They saved whatever 2nd-round pick they would have spent on a quarterback in the previous draft.
Now, bit of a different situation. They roll with Davis Mills and a lame duck coach. They had Lovie Smith. So that's a little different than hiring a new head coach. They come in, draft their guy. Like that. So, and then Lovie Smith gets fired. D'Amico Ryans gets hired. Like the whole thing changed. And then they draft CJ Stroud that year. So it is a little bit different than that situation.
The Titans did the opposite of this. They drafted Will Levis because in their minds, it's like, well, we need a quarterback. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is, right? Like they were obsessed with CJ Stroud in that draft. They decided we need to come out of this with a quarterback. They traded up for Will Levis, which made it doubly bad, but they still drafted Will Levis in the 2nd round. Will Levis was bad, and the Titans were back in the quarterback market the next year again anyway. And so while spending a 40th overall pick when you don't have a quarterback on one just to take a chance, it's not the worst thing in the world.
Agreed. And especially at a position so important to where if you miss whatever, because you, like he said, you should get right back in the pool. There's not a doubt in my mind if the Carolina Panthers would have had the 1st overall pick the year after Bryce Young and they could have drafted Caleb Williams, they would have. Arizona drafted Josh Rosen, top 15 pick, said, hey, man, it ain't going to work. Took Kyler Murray the next year. Not that big. Like, it sucks in the moment, yeah, but it just kind of is what it is. And at the quarterback position, it's less about the route you take to get one, and it's more about just making sure you get one. If in all those situations, if Cam Ward works out, no one's going to care about trading up for Will Levis. All right, Kyler Murray, whatever you think about him, but no one cared about Josh Rosen. Yeah, you'd want that pick back, like for sure. Kyle Trask, no one cares about that because you have Baker Mayfield. If Spencer Rattler works out, no one's going to care about the Tyler Shough pick. If neither one of these guys works out, but next year you get insert quarterback and they work out, no one cares. I'm okay with taking the shot at the most important position.
The idea of we need to make sure we're trying to find a quarterback this year just isn't true when you are in the spot that the Saints are in. It's just a need to kind of wave at the idea of competing when it's not overly necessary.
Well, unless you think how these guys said at the top of the hour or at the top of the video, unless you think, well, the team's not that bad. If you think, well, the team is actually talented if we do have a quarterback and we let this draft class come in and do what they do, then next year this could be a team that's competing for this division. I don't think they have Super Bowl aspirations, but if you told me, do you think the Saints could be in a 9-win-ish NFC South competitive world next year? I'd say, yeah, I can see that. If all this draft class takes a step forward, if they all do what they got to do and you bring in players and this Kellen Moore thing works and Brandon Staley works and some of these younger players take a step, yeah, okay. I can see the Saints being, especially with having more salary cap room and all that stuff. Yeah, all right. So if you're thinking that, I could see where you're not thinking this is a 3, 4, 5 year rebuild from the bottom.
There's some irony there because maybe if Tyler Shough helps him get the number 1 pick in the draft the way Will Levis did, maybe
we're going to talk about that in a second here. That's not the last time I'm going to make this comparison.
This was Mickey's master plan the entire time.
I don't know if he's got any of those
spending a top 40
point.
pick to do that does not feel worth it to me. Dave, what are you watching in the first month of the season with the 2025 Saints?
Offensive line, can we run the football?
I have an earnest
and then the entire defense, just because it's so new, the scheme and everything.
Answer for this, and I'm actually really excited about it. Again, as somebody who was in high school when Sean Payton got to New Orleans, we knew he was a hotshot offensive mind from the Cowboys. We knew that the Cowboys had a good offense, but as crazy as it seems now, we didn't know Sean Payton, the guy, and he was young. I remember when Sean Payton got to New Orleans, like he wore a visor all the time. I mean, he still does, but like he looked much younger. He looked like Dennis the Menace. Like he looked like a cartoon character. And he would yell on the sideline and get super animated, and it was goofy. And like it's funny to think about that now with 20 years of context of what a great coach he is and all that he's accomplished. But when he got there, he was just a young dude with a good track record, but not the cemented status that he has now. And I think Kellen Moore is a very fun parallel because what do we know about Kellen Moore? We know that his offenses are great. He's had success pretty much everywhere he's gone. Let's just not talk about the Chargers season. He's had a lot of good offenses. He's helped a lot of good quarterbacks play and score touchdowns. He won a Super Bowl. He's got this great mind for the game, but he's a young dude. He looks like your next door neighbor, kind of, like he doesn't look like somebody that's going to.
Yeah, I mean, Kellen Moore, such an interesting coach. He's another guy where it's like the narrative is interesting because imagine the narrative around Ben Johnson if the Lions would have won the Super Bowl last year. Like, people act like Bill Johnson is Bill Walsh. Ben Johnson is Bill Walsh. Did I say Bill Johnson? Ben Johnson is Bill Walsh. And they act like Kellen Moore was just, whatever, it is what it is. But Kellen has a better resume than Ben Johnson. Kellen is younger. Kellen should be the one that's getting this insane push as like the next young, innovative, successful offensive coordinator that's turning into a head coach. And for some reason, I guess because of the Saints thing, he's not. Ben Johnson is kind of getting that. But, I mean, I think the parallels to Sean Payton are absolutely there because and Kellen is so unique, too, because of him going from a player to a coach within 6 months. He was on the roster of the Cowboys as a quarterback and then went to being a coach. I mean, think about, like, Jake Haener just got waived. It's a little bit of a different situation because Haener's still on his rookie deal and all that stuff. But imagine if Jake Haener was waived, but then became the quarterback coach of the Saints, like, next year. That would be crazy. That's what Kellen did. Like, Kellen did not take any time, didn't go coach college, didn't go coach high school, didn't go try and play in the USFL or whatever. He just, boom, I'm a coach. And it seems like he's always been a coach. I mean, even if you watch the Gruden camp video or whatever it's called, when he was a quarterback at Boise State, it's almost like two coaches talking. Like, it seems like Kellen's always been on this track.
Get up in front of an NFL locker room and just get everybody to want to run through a brick wall. And I'm just curious to see Kellen Moore, the head coach, like not how the Saints even play, but like, what does he do on Sunday? Like, is he barking at the refs? And
some of this we've seen, and most of this has been positive, just how he approaches the operational side of being a head coach.
Is he going over to the refs before the game being like, hey, we noticed this about their coverage, like throw a flag on this when they do it. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. Like, is he winning in the margins on special teams? Does he like jump into a player's arms when they score a game-winning touchdown? I don't know. We don't know about anything about.
As of right now, I think it's safe to say he's like a player's coach. I mean, the Jonas Sanker interception against Jacksonville, there's a picture of Sanker making the interception, and Kellen is like grinning ear to ear, running down the sideline.
Kellen Moore in this situation, and I think it'll be fun to find out.
I 100% agree with this. I think much of like what the Saints have done this offseason has kind of like happened in the darkness of night. Like
same thing with what I was talking about, where by week 3, the Saints could be like this darling team. By week 3, Kellen Moore could be like, okay, this guy's coach of the year. Like, this guy is the man. This guy's the next big thing. This guy's the next, whatever coach. Like, right now, screenshot all of the coaches' power rankings, all that stuff, because next year, I would not be surprised at all if Kellen goes from 31 or whatever to 4 or 5. Like, he's like the next big name.
We haven't talked about it at all. I think part of it is because the Eagles won the Super Bowl, so they hired Kellen Moore a little bit later, and Kellen Moore is just kind of a forgettable head coaching hire. Like, there's nothing overly exciting about bringing in Kellen Moore to be your head coach.
And that's what I think is so crazy, because even the way they operate, Ben Johnson and Kellen Moore are very similar, like very unassuming looking guys, kind of baby faces, kind of soft-spoken, more of an analytical, more of an X's and O's. But you would never hear the sentence he just said about Ben Johnson. But Kellen's the one that just won the Super Bowl. Kellen's the one that has way more success as an offensive coordinator than Ben Johnson. It's just like a weird, like, everyone's kind of agreed, like, yeah, Kellen's not an exciting hire. But like, I don't understand why. So everyone just agreed, yes, Ben Johnson's an exciting hire, Liam Cohen's an exciting hire, but Kellen Moore's not. When Kellen Moore's the one that won the Super Bowl.
I think he was a solid offensive coordinator over the last few years. He was not the hottest name on the market. And this extends to what they did with the defensive coordinator. Like, I just don't, if you asked 10 random NFL fans who the defensive coordinator is for the New Orleans Saints, do you think half of them would know it's Brandon Staley?
Absolutely not.
So.
There's no
I
shot.
don't think so. And I'm
think
curious
most people
what Brandon Staley, in his second go around as a defensive coordinator, how does this look? Because some guys are just better suited to be coordinators. So the combination of him and Kellen Moore, I think there are a lot of reasons to be not that enthused about the Saints. I'm at least curious about how this goes.
The Staley thing really fascinates me more because obviously what he did in LA was insanely cool, but also like he was cheating. You have Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. Like, you have probably like two of the most field tilting players in the league at the time. And so even though he was doing cool stuff, he was getting away with stuff that he wasn't allowed to. When he
Yeah, I think there's two sides to that. I think on one hand, yes, absolutely. Like, it makes your job easier. But on the second hand, I think you do have to know how to utilize them. And I think Staley proved he knew I can do this with Jalen Ramsey. I can do this with Aaron Donald. And there is something to be said about being able to get the most out of those players. Just like Sean McVay, it's like, yeah, if you give Sean McVay Christian McCaffrey or Kyle Shanahan, I don't know why I picked Sean McVay there, but if you gave Kyle Shanahan Christian McCaffrey and he gives him offensive player of the year type season, it's like, okay, that's kudos to McCaffrey for being that good, but also kudos to Kyle Shanahan for being able to figure it out. Same with Kevin O'Connell. Like, Kevin O'Connell, kudos to being able to figure out Sam Darnold, Justin Jefferson, whatever. Kevin Stefanski with Joe Flacco. And when Joe Flacco won Comeback Player of the Year and Kevin Stefanski won Coach of the Year. It's like most of that was because, damn, he's figuring out what to do with this piece. And yeah, I know this is that's a totally different thing than having Aaron Donald, but it is interesting that Kellen is not getting the credit for figuring out what to do with Jalen Hurts, figuring out what to do with Saquon Barkley, figuring out what to do with A.J. Brown. I mean, that Eagles offense was nuts last year. Absolutely nutty. And it is a tip of the cap when an offensive coordinator can come in and say, okay, I see the pieces I have, just like a chef with ingredients, and understanding how to make the best meal out of the ingredients you have. I'm not going to ever say, well, of course Thomas Keller is a good chef. He's got the best meat, the best steaks, the best vegetables. Like, of course. So, okay, well, you give a mediocre chef those ingredients, they're probably going to make a mediocre meal. You don't take that away from them. So, yes, it does make it easier. You get the best equipment, best, whatever food, but you still have to put it together.
Realized he had to pivot off of some of that as the head coach of the Chargers. Just felt like maybe too many things on his plate, trying to do too many things at one time. Now that he can be like, okay, how do I call my defense without having some of those cheat code answers, but also now I don't have to worry about our week to week as a head coach thing. Like, who knows if it's going to work, but it's just, I am at least like pretty excited that we get to see what that might look like for him.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what success means what success looks like for the 2025 Saints. I'm going to give you guys a very specific answer.
Good question. I just had a video about this, but I think if you are relevant, if you're trending in the right direction, if you're succeeding on offense, if you can run the football, things like that. And I think if you're trying to put a record on it, don't take a step back. Like 5 wins or above is, I would happily say, is a successful season.
This, I kind of, waved at it before. If the Saints have the 2024 Titans season, where they have a second-round quarterback who is very, very bad, the offensive infrastructure with a play-calling head coach who used to be an offensive coordinator looks solid, right? It's not embarrassing, even if this team is shooting itself in the foot over and over and over again because the quarterback play is so problematic. If you have some young pieces along the offensive line, but it doesn't all the way come together, and you have a defense where you feel good about the coordinator, and you think, all right, if we get better talent in here over the next couple of years, can we feel like we can be like a top 10-ish sort of defense? So can they have the 2024 Tennessee Titans season where they pick?
Now, the problem with that is the Titans were, they won 2 or 3 games. And the Titans didn't have the pieces that the Saints do. So the issue with that is, can the Saints have a good offensive line, a good defense, a good running game, good wide receiver play, but have the Titans season because of the quarterback? And I'll go a step further. Can the quarterback be as bad as Will Levis was and stay on the field? Probably not. Because if Shough is that bad, they will go to Rattler. And if Rattler is that bad, they will go to Shough. So you're asking, the algorithm he's laying out is offensive line good, running game good, wide receivers good, defense good, offensive infrastructure, play calling good, but both quarterbacks are so bad that it tanks the entire season. I don't think that can happen.
Number 1 overall, but we feel good about all of those other things. That, to me, is success for the Saints.
What is way more realistic is everything's good, quarterback plays bad, Saints end up with like the 12th overall pick. Quarterback class is so heavy that you take whoever, 12th overall, and they're your Bo Nix. That is much more likely than what he's laying out. It's much more likely that the Saints, the infrastructure there is, the pieces are there, but the quarterback play is bad to the point to where, all right, you are drafting in the top 10 somewhere in there, and you do go get your guy. And just like the Broncos, that's really all you need. Like, okay, you got Bo Nix, boom, and then immediately you're a playoff team. Boom, immediately you've got all these other pieces. I could see that. I could see the Saints being in that 5-win, 6-win world that gets them, we have the 11th pick. We get the 4th quarterback off the board. We have Cade Klubnik or Garrett Nussmeier or whoever, insert your quarterback, Drew Aller, and they're good. Kellen turns them into a franchise quarterback, just like Sean Payton did with Bo Nix. And I could see that track for the Saints.
I'm sure Mickey Loomis and Kellen Moore and everyone there wouldn't say that's success. That, to me, is like the best case scenario for how this can go for New Orleans.
Yeah, like, to me, it could be landing at the 1st overall pick. It could be like miraculously waltzing into 8 games, 8 wins somehow or another. But to me, it's just like, if we feel good about Kellen Moore and we feel good about the offensive line, like that.
100%. I agree with that. If you can run the football, if your offensive line's good, you feel good about Kellen Moore. He can be a coach. You see some success. That is a success. And like I just laid out, you can absolutely get there and get to 6 wins and be the 11th pick, 12th pick, 13th pick, and get your franchise quarterback. You can have all of that. And it's not that far-fetched to think that could happen.
That's it. And again, it does not matter if they win 3 games or 8. If we get those 2 things and then we can insert the quarterback in there, we're chilling.
Yeah. They should win 8 games. No one that roots for the Saints should be rooting for them to win 8 games. The only path that is okay if they win 8 games is that Tyler Shough is on his way to being like a top 12 quarterback as part of that calculus to win 8 games. If that is not the case, do not want them to win 8 games.
I don't think I mean, y'all know I disagree with that. I strongly disagree that losing, having the 1st overall pick, whatever, leads to success. We have seen time and time again that does not happen. We've seen over and over and over again that losing, having a high draft pick is not correlated to success. What is correlated to success is getting your quarterback, whether that's the 10th pick in Patrick Mahomes, whether that's the 32nd pick with Lamar Jackson, whether that's the whatever Bo Nix was, the 14th pick, whether that's the 22nd pick with Jordan Love, or it doesn't matter as long as you get or Brock Purdy or Jalen Hurts or Dak Prescott or any of these guys. Like, it is not as easy as get a top 3 pick, take Justin Fields, take Trevor Lawrence, take Bryce Young, take all these players. Like, it's not that easy. All right. So I would much rather the infrastructure be there, the success be there on the offensive line. We win 6, 7, 8 games. We're picking in the middle of the draft and we go from there. I'd much rather that than the things that would have to happen in order for the Saints to be the worst team in the NFL, to have the first overall pick, to then hope you get that right.
That is like,
because that means other parts of the team are failing.
like logically the right thing, but I have a little bit of Mickey Loomis brain where I kind of respect like always compete. So
okay,
Compete but lose.
That's a perfect. I'm glad you said that, Derek, because it's funny. 2 things can be true, and this conversation happens in every bad NFL city every fall, where people want the better draft pick, so their team tank and they're rooting for losses. And you got to remember, there's a difference between the locker room and the front office, right? Like the coaches and the players are going to always compete because you got to worry about your job the next day, right? Like we saw it with the Giants beating the Colts last year. All like draft pick be damned. We are professionals and we're going to try our best to win a game. The front office doesn't always have to view it that way. The front office can say, hey, if we see some good things from our coach that make us feel good about that hire, we see some young players take steps and we're competitive, but the record is bad, we're not going to say this publicly, but that's A-okay. The problem is Mickey Loomis doesn't seem capable of thinking that way. And that's why I agree with you, Robert. I think that is a best case scenario for the Saints would be to be the Titans.
See, here's my problem with that. And I've waxed poetic about this, so I'm not going to do it again. But things you have to be bad to be the first overall pick. Parts of the team have to fail. Like the Titans last year were terrible. Like you look at their DVOA on defense, on offense, they're like 31st, 29th, 32nd. It's not like, oh, the Titans are sweet, they just need a quarterback. No, they're horrible. They can't, you're not good. A team is not good unless like there was a trade involved and all that stuff. But a team is not good, successful, whatever, and just has the first overall pick. So would you risk the offensive line being bad, the running game being bad, the wide receivers being bad, the defense being bad, whatever, just to have the first overall pick? No. You'd much rather all of the parts of the team be good, and then you try and get the quarterback in the middle or the late, that's why I don't think there's any benefit or anything in rooting for a really bad team or for your team to be really bad. I mean, look at the Colts and Anthony Richardson. It's like he was the fourth overall pick? Sweet. Can't play. Still can't play. Daniel Jones was the quarterback. So rooting for a sunken season just so you can have a top 5 pick to take your quarterback doesn't mean much.
But I think the organization feels so stubbornly against admitting that type of stuff that this team, by hook or by crook, will find a way to not be the number 1 overall pick. And so I would just say, as long as you don't play your way out of range for a quarterback, I can live with that.
But even then, it's just crazy to hear that. Like, let's say playing your way out of range is winning 8 games instead of 5 games. You would want to win the 8 games because that shows your team is closer to being good. You don't want to be worse just to take a shot at whatever, the top 10 pick. If the question is, would you rather win 9 games and miss out on the first 4 quarterbacks? Well, that means in order to win 9 games, things are working. So you take that. You take the option of things are working. You don't take the option of things aren't working. Oh, and also, now you have to hit on the quarterback.
If you're picking 8th or 10th, preferably higher, but at the bare minimum, if you're picking top 10, you can find your way to a quarterback, especially with the quarterback class looking the way that it does. I mean, obviously, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but there are 3 to 5 guys that people are really excited about heading into the college season. Shameless plug. You can go hear about it on Building the Beast with me and Dane Brugler if you are a Saints fan. But the class should be good enough that you have a shot. So number 1 overall pick would be great, but just don't play your way out of range where drafting a quarterback is a pipe dream instead of a realistic possibility.
They might be within striking distance of a quarterback now, but when they trade a 3rd round,
I mean, it's kind of like being like, and this is an extreme example, but it's like, well, man, you played yourself into having the 32nd overall pick. Now you can't get a quarterback. It's like, well, yeah, but that means I won the Super Bowl. You know, it's like, whatever. Like, I'll fine. Like, oh man, you made the playoffs, so you can't draft the top quarterback. Yeah, but I made the playoffs. Sweet, cool. I'll take that. I'll take that part. I'll take the playoff part.
Pick for Jalen Coker next week. That's going to start changing. All right. That's all we got for the 2025
I mean, it's like the Family Guy meme or whatever, where it's like the hidden doors or whatever. It's like, what's behind door number 1? It's like, it could be a boat. So yeah, but you know a boat's behind this door. Why would you rather that? You know, take the known outcome of the season. But all right, good video. Good stuff from these guys. First time we watched them, I was impressed. All right, long one. So if you made it to the end, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.